Hey, it's Brian Burns again, once with some career advice. Hey, this topic is kind of a personal story and really kind of how I made the big switch. And thank God it happened early in my life. And it was a saying that I had heard um, on some motivational tape or some book I was reading. I think, via Wayne Dyer, who was one of the self-help people back in the old days. And it was when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now, I don't think he came up with it, but it stuck with me. And it's all so true. It's until we are ready, until we want to make the change, until we have the initiative, it just doesn't happen. And what we happen to see is that this is consistent throughout people's lives. And I was talking to an expert who does assessments of salespeople, and he said, motivation and drive is pretty much set by the age of 24. And very rarely does it change. So when they're interviewing for salespeople, they look for that level of competitiveness and inner motivation, inner drive, things that, people, get up in the morning and go do what they have to do. That is set very early in our lives. And I think it can be changed. I think it's hard to change, but I think it can be changed. But if you look at all the major life changes and career changes that if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're probably looking to either get into a better career or make your business or your business life much better. And what we tend to do, though, is just the opposite. We tend to wait around. We tend to hope that something's going to get better, that somehow something is going to happen to us, that we're going to get discovered. And what's unique was when I was looking at kind of, the listenership of the podcast, how do we get discovered was the most popular episode, because that's the way we think. We think we're going to get that to happen to us, that we are going to become discovered, and just by accident, our natural ability, I think calling the Kardashian syndrome. And I think it's affecting our whole society in that, just for being ourselves, that we're going to become famous. We're famous for being famous. And we're going to be discovered for whatever innate beauty, skill, talent that we have. And the thing is, that will happen to somebody. If it didn't happen to me, it might not happen to you. So if that's your strategy, good luck. I hope it works for you. But if it happens not to, this is what we have to do is first, stop waiting. Okay. And I tell myself this all the time because I'm like, what am I not doing that I should be doing? And there was a bunch of stuff, because I looked at my competitors or the alternatives my customers have. And I'm like, what am I not doing that they're doing? And I kind of downplay it. I rationalize it. I explain it to myself. I come up with excuses, but I know I should do it. I need to do it. And I gotta do it. And so, I kind of nudge myself along. And I had a great interview on my Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast with this Harvard professor who did research about this, about getting outside your comfort zone. And for him, it was self-motivated. He was like a academic, from kindergarten on. He goes, I felt really comfortable in school. Learning things came easy to me. I could identify that I've seen that happen when some people are born with certain skills. In earlier episodes, I talked about a friend of mine in kindergarten who could draw like a photograph, and he became an artist, a very successful artist. But it was inane. It was his brain was just formed that way. And you see it with people. You see people in school where they just naturally learn things the way society gives it to us. and they're great at reading or math, makes perfect sense to them, while we look at it as a Chinese food menu. That's kind of how I looked at it. And those people, they do well in academics. And then you look at David and Goliath, a great book written by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about the downside and the upside of certain disadvantages. And he concentrated on dyslexia, in that there's a disproportionate number of successful people who have dyslexia. Now, why would this make sense? It makes sense because they worked around their obstacle. Now, on the other side of it, there's a disproportionate people in prison that have dyslexia. So they didn't work around it, or they worked around it in the illegal way. So what ends up happening is that we all are in this game called life, and we all have to figure it out. And what I'm saying in this episode is get yourself ready for the teacher to appear. Don't wait for the teacher to show up. Okay, you have to get yourself ready, because the teachers are all around you. This is not the way it was 20 years ago before the internet, where you had to go to a building and listen to a person who showed up, and you had to pay for that person to share their knowledge. Today, you just have to, put the earbuds in your ear and download podcasts, YouTube, audiobooks, get on the internet and search for anything, and it's out there. And then you can take online courses, you can hire a coach, hire a mentor. And I have this argument with parents who send their kids to colleges. It's like, for that 50, 60 grand a year, and if they don't fit into college and they don't want to go to college and they have a particular skill that's marketable, that is essentially a full-time teacher they could have, working with them to teach them that skill. Now, of course, they won't get the degree, but they'll get infinitely more experience. And maybe society by then will change their minds about the degree. The degree itself is even changing. There are, venture capitalists like Peter Thiel who are downplaying it. Almost all the bloggers are downplaying it, in that it doesn't fit our society the way it used to. It certainly doesn't. Now, there are certain professions where it does: legal, accountants, and certain certifications, certainly, physicians, doctors, and, researchers and stuff. And there is certainly, I'm not trying to downplay the need for academics. I'm just saying the mechanisms have changed. So the first thing is you're going to get a trigger point. And what is the trigger point for you to change? Now, how many people have we seen who are a little bit overweight, and they all say they all have great reasons why. But, 99% of the time it's basically calories in, calories out. Eat less, move more. So, and they need a trigger event to make that happen. And typically it's a bottom. You hear that in the addiction community. It has to get so bad that they can't get worse. Either health problems, near-death experiences, having their kids call them fat or overweight, or some kind of reflection on themselves. And, I've seen it, where I walked by a window and I go, "Who's that heavy guy?" I didn't say heavy, I said fat guy. And I go, "That's me." I saw my own reflection and I didn't recognize myself. And I go, whoop, I got to start running again. And all of a sudden you have that trigger event. And then the teacher will appear, okay, you'll figure out how to run, how to build a website, how to build an email list, how to use this product or that product, learn this skill or that skill. So you got to, start the trigger event, whatever it is. And what this PhD taught me in our interview was, it's not, don't do the big leap. The problem with the big leap is you don't do it. Right? You can walk on fire or take a cold shower every morning. And then the problem is it works for some people, but it doesn't work for most people. And he says the best way was to kind of rationalize it, break it down, understand that it's going to be uncomfortable, understand that you're going to accept it, understand that you're going to take a little baby step, and then try and take a little step and see how that it isn't that bad. And all of a sudden, the teachers will appear. Because if once you start wanting to learn a skill, like I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, I said, for the podcast, people were like, "Where's your website?" And I go, "Well, just connect up with me on LinkedIn." They go, "Well, where?" People had the website thing in mind. It's like, "I can't find you online." It's like, well, when you search, I'm the first person that comes up. Okay. So, I mean, it's just, and I fought it and I rationalized it and I delayed it. And one day I just said, the student was ready. The trigger event happened. I was like, okay, so I tried WordPress and I go, oh God, this is a job. Then I go, do I hire somebody? But I want to make changes all the time, and I want to have control over it, and I don't want to have to, I don't need that much. I just need to give away an ebook, to build a list, have links to my courses, a place to put my blog that's not just on LinkedIn, so I get some search engine optimization and get some visitors. That's all I needed. I needed the simplest of websites, but I did want it to look professional. And one of my guests on my podcast had talked about he used Wix, W-I-X. And I checked it out, and it looked simple. Then I brought it up on YouTube, and I go, okay, so I'm going to try it. So I did it. So I had one screen with Wix and one with me building the site. And I literally, within a couple of hours, I had a reasonable site up. And people say, oh, it's a little slow when you can do this. Okay. I've never found anyone who loves every website, right? There's always, it's either too pretty or it's too slow or it's too something. But within, I've got it up. I can now post my blog on it. I got an email capture list. I've got a free ebook I put on it, and that was it. And it literally took an afternoon, and there was some frustration. It wasn't flawless. There was a learning curve to it. But I got ready, and I broke it down, and I found an easy approach, and I got it to work. And now I'm in the mode of learning about it. And maybe I'll hire a Wix expert to make it optimized. If you're a Wix expert out there and you want to check it out, b2brevenue.com. If you know how to make it faster, hit me up. I'll hire you to make it faster. If you can, unless I figure that out, I'll just do a Google search on how to make it faster. I probably have too many videos on it or something. The background video is slowing things down. Or, people are just loading it on their phone and, they go, oh, they get grumpy about it. And this is what we have to do. So this is kind of backwards. So instead of looking for someone to tell us what to do and how to do it, we have to go looking for what to do and how to do it. Now, this is counterintuitive in the sense that we've been socialized through our whole lives by our parents and then by the university that we went to or some school or military that we went to. And then we go to a company and our managers, tell us what to do. And if it doesn't work, guess who gets blamed? We get blamed, not the system. The system doesn't get blamed. We get blamed because we don't fit into the system or the system doesn't necessarily work for us. And that is the rub because the system is changing so fast today that it doesn't typically work for everybody. It works in certain cases. It works sometimes. And this is what I get all the time in sales is people telling me that, the system isn't working. And I go, okay, this is what I'm working. Let's work through it. And they keep coming up with why it won't work. And I'm like, okay, what have you tried? And they say everything. Well, you didn't try everything. Let's kind of break it down. And then all of a sudden you see what they're doing. And I go, okay, now this is why it's not working. Let's put a little twist to it, try it, get a little bit better, try it on different people, try it on something else. You might be in the wrong industry. You might be in the wrong job, the wrong company, either for you or for the timing. So check this out. Think about it. Get yourself ready, and the teacher will appear. Don't wait for the teacher, okay? Find out what you want. Pull that trigger, go looking for it, and you'll find it. It works that, you can't put the word easy in there. It works in that sequence. So just work that sequence consistently, and it will work. It's not overnight. It took me a long time to, because I had an old website from when I wrote a book that I still had used, and I don't maintain it. It hasn't been touched in years. And, I didn't want to touch it because, I didn't want to break it. It just took me to the point where I was like, how hard can it be? And I took the conventional approach. And I've had, WordPress experts on the podcast, and they said, I'll fix it for you for free and put it into WordPress. And, sometimes it's good enough. But that's my little story there. Check it out, b2brevenue.com. Got some courses there if you ever thought of getting into sales or seeing what that world is like. Appreciate you listening. Tell a friend about the show. Thanks. Hey, so check out Mac's company at rainmakerforce.com. I think you'll really like what you see there. They also produce a great amount of content. If you're trying to build out a sales development team or a business development team on either the demand gen side of marketing or the sales development side on sales, check out b2brevenue.com. And under training, the first link is to all my training courses where I can basically guide them through that a year-long process from being hired all the way through everything they need to know. I call it SDR grad school, as well as more senior sales training for your account execs and enterprise salespeople called Closing the Complex Sale. Check it out there. There's also a link if you just like to talk about the course, if you're serious and interested in it, to understand it better, see if it's a good match for you and your company. You can get on my calendar there for a quick 15-minute conversation to see if it's a match, or just send me an email. BrianGBurns@me.com is the easiest, as well as on the website. You can find that, b2brevenue.com. Hey, I really appreciate you tuning in today, and make sure you connect up with me on LinkedIn, Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn, and I really appreciate anybody who happens to throw a like my way. If you see any of my content flying around LinkedIn, certainly appreciate that, as well as telling everybody about the show. If you'd like to hear it on either Android, it's on Google Play on Android, as well as SoundCloud and Stitcher, pretty much everywhere podcasts are. And the Salespeople, Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling, is up there. And that's great for your sales team to learn how to sell today. And Maverick Method on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate it.